episode of Hidden Stories Healed Now, where we give love and hope and we let others know you're not alone in your journeys. Today is a very, very special episode to me. And it's special because I can tell you, I have my boo with me, Mr. Harold Hamilton. And we're going to talk today and have a conversation about what really happens with caregiving, especially when it's in your home. So thank you for joining us. Well, hi, Harold.
Good afternoon.
So let's share with our audience a little bit about your caregiving story from beginning to how it evolved and what's happened over the years.
Okay. Well, I guess it started with my brother. I got a call one day that said that my brother had been in an accident. He was in the hospital. We hadn't talked in a couple of months. He was getting ready to travel a little bit. And when I got that call and I went to see him, I saw him strapped to a hospital bed. He didn't know who I was. He couldn't speak, couldn't control his bodily functions. And a doctor told me that your brother is going to be like this for the rest of his life. I mean, he was 35 years old at the time. So I was pretty devastated, and I couldn't accept the fact that one doctor had said that. So I immediately tried to get a second opinion. He was a veteran, so I tried to call the VA hospital because his situation occurred outside of being military connected. They said I had to be on the waiting list for a year. So I was in Savannah at the time. That's the hospital he was in. So I called Emory Hospital, and we had him moved down there because I figured with a research hospital, they would be able to figure out what was going on. So we did all of that, got the second opinion, and basically my brother had something called encephalitis, viral encephalitis. They don't know what caused it. So the result of that was his brain, after the swelling, resulted in a cognitive disorder for him. So at that point, 35 years old, he was no longer able to live by himself, no longer able to work. And again, he was going to be like this for the rest of his life. So after that swelling went down, he did regain his memory to some degree, his long-term memory. He lost 2 years of his memory of his life. So 35 years old, I was told that there was never going to be an improvement. So we tried to bring him into the home. At first, we tried to put him in a facility, that could take care of him. But think about someone being 35 years old and being in an elderly facility with people that are 60 years and older. I mean, there's nobody he could really talk to, no level of engagement. So we did that for a year, and then we said, let's just bring him home with us. And that's what we did. And that went okay for a while, and then there were some other complications that resulted in him needing much more care, dealing with colostomies and ostomies and all that sort of stuff. So those of you that are familiar with that know that can be kind of a challenge. So between myself and my youngest son, actually, we took turns taking care of my brother. And we did that for a number of years. But after 3 or 4 years, the kids are starting to get older, we're starting to travel more, I'm trying to work, Vicki's working. We realized that we had to get him into another facility that could be with him all day long, because we no longer could do that. And once we did that, the care still continues. There's a financial commitment associated with it. There's the weekly visits and getting him equipment and medications and all of that. So we're still dealing with that. So even though he doesn't live in the home anymore, we're still having to take care of him and check in on him and make sure he has everything that he needs. So it's a long-term thing. He's a younger brother as well. So this is my life, and my family, thank God, has been able to step in and lean in and help, both from the financial perspective, the time perspective. My oldest son used to run the errands with him for me to take him his supplies that he needed on a weekly basis with the ostomy and all that sort of stuff. So it's very long. And I will tell you, there's really two sides to the story, because when you are a caregiver, you're going through it and you think it's just you. There is an impact on the family, but what you don't realize, and because I've been on both sides of this fence now, is that there's a gap. Every time the time that I spend with my brother, I'm not spending it with my family. I'm not spending it with my kids. I'm not spending it with my wife. And I did not even think about any of that stuff, right? Because it was kind of assumed that You have a family member, they're in need, you need to step up and do what you got to do. That's what my mama would have wanted me to do. That's what I kept telling myself. So, as I was going through that process, I never even thought about that. But then came a time when my mother-in-law came to live with us, right? And it was the same kind of situation. It was a caregiver kind of situation. And she was in a much dire situation and required daily care around the clock. So Vicki, being the person she is, she leaned in and she did all of that. And I got to tell you, I felt a certain kind of way because we were, just so you understand, my youngest son had just graduated from high school and was going to college. So we got everybody out, right? so we were looking forward to, okay, now the fun can start. And then boom, this situation happened. So that was a little bit of a blow, but understanding what we had just gone through and are still going through with my brother, it was no questions. Yeah, bring her here. She'll do better. And that's what we did. But, on that flip side, there was a gap. The time that we used to spend, the date night that we used to have every week, sometimes that had to go by the wayside because we had to take care of mom, right? And whereas you understand that, there's still that gap, And even when you finish taking care of mom, now you're so tired, you can't spend time with your family. So I just need everybody to kind of understand that when you talk about caregiving, you think, oh, it's my mom, I got it, I'm gonna do it. It's the whole family. The thing about it takes a village, it truly takes a village. And this never goes away. I mean, it's day in, day out, all day, all night. You always have to think about it. You always got to plan for it. It's just like having another child. So it was a lot. It was a lot.
Well, Harold, I appreciate you sharing both sides of that. And we're going to take a station break. And when we come back, we're going to talk a little bit more about the impacts on both sides and what that really looks like. What are the feelings that you don't talk about? What are the conversations you don't have? And the impacts of those. So we'll be back in just a moment. Thank you.
Every story has a hidden element that is not often shared. Hidden Stories, Healed Now, with host Vicki Wright-Hamilton, seeks to share the hidden gems in real-life experiences. Our guests are ordinary people sharing their stories of overcoming insurmountable odds while providing hope and inspiration.
So welcome back. As we were talking about caregiving and the impacts of that. So, Harold, I want to change our conversation a little bit. Mm-hmm. And I appreciate the fact that you talked about when your brother was there. And I remember the day when he was at home with us and you were downstairs giving him a shower and he was passing out. Mm-hmm. And we had to get him from the basement up to the first floor. We're calling 911. We're trying to figure out what we're going to do. Mm-hmm. And I know deep in my heart, I may not have ever said it, but I was like, oh my God, I can't come home and find him dead. I cannot come home and deal with this. What are we going to do? Mm-hmm. So after we had the conversation when he got into the hospital and we looked for someplace, the emotions of trying to find a home for him. Can you talk a little bit about what you looked for him being a 35-year-old man, 37 at this point, almost 40, and we didn't want to put him into a nursing home where he was around people he couldn't have conversation with. It was already bad enough that his quality of life was not the way it used to be. And it's just the two of you. There is nobody else. Your mother and father have passed. Mm-hmm. So how are you feeling going through this process, and what did you do to find a proper place to stay?
Well, that was the hardest part, because I think growing up and the way we're raised, at least in my culture, is you always take care of your own, right? You never talk about putting a parent or a relative in a nursing home. That's like a no-no. If you're able to take care of your people, you take care of your people. So the first thing to even have that thought process was foreign to us. Right. But after seeing him in those situations and knowing he had the propensity to pass out frequently, knowing that I'm on the road and traveling, Vicki's working, the boys are doing their things, it just was too risky to not do that. So we had to let common sense prevail and then go through that process. Now, remember, we had already tried a facility before. We did that for a year and that just didn't work. We brought him home. and we know we need to do something different. So I looked for a more intimate type of a situation. So I went to a group home scenario. I have a friend that was a social worker that again given us some insight on some of these different facilities. They had actually visited the facility, so I had a little bit of insight on how good they were, the quality, and that sort of thing. So we decided to go that route. And what I found there is that it was it was more like a home. So they cared a little bit more, that there were people there that he could build friendships with. It wasn't just, quote, staff, right? And I think that was the most important part. So I always made sure to give him a private room. He's a big TV person, so he had to have his cable, and then his snacks. So and again, with his quality of life being like it was, I probably overindulged on the snacks, but I felt like that was something I could do for him. So we did that, and that worked out really, really well. Once every couple of weeks or so, I'd go pick him up, we'd bring him home, and he'd have Sunday dinner with us, that sort of thing. So just kind of get him out and get him about, take him to get his haircuts and all that sort of thing. So it worked out pretty well, and I felt a little self-conscious about it initially, but we would talk 3 to 4 times a week just to check in, make sure everything was okay. And he won't pull any punches. He'll tell you if it's not okay. So we were good. I will tell you though, one of the hardest parts was my youngest son at that time. He thought that we were putting my brother out the house. He cried. Now that part was difficult, and trying to explain to him that no, we're not putting Uncle Jeffrey out. We're trying to put Uncle Jeffrey in a situation where he can be better taken care of, right? And after we explained it to him, because remember, this is the one that was helping to take care of him, but after we explained it to him, he understood it, and later on was able to really adapt to it, and he started doing the errands with Jeffrey on Saturdays sometimes, and that sort of thing. But it was a tough conversation, because again, I guess we instill that in our kids too. You take care of your family, and when he saw us, moving Jeffrey out, it was like, why are we putting Jeffrey out? So it was a hard conversation, but he eventually understood it.
So, as we went through this process, and I'm sitting on the other side, so I'll talk about my feelings, since we can talk about both sides of the table. Watching Jeffrey in that situation, knowing that it was your only brother, it was just the two of you, and I couldn't fix it. I couldn't make it go away. We could help financially, and we sacrificed financially significantly to do this, but there was never a conversation. There was no choice. I don't care how much investment we had to let go, how many savings we had to go, it didn't matter. This was a part of the family, and this is what we were gonna do. And deep down inside, I kept saying, oh my God, is this gonna be forever? How long is this going to be? Because my husband works all the time. And we have had Friday night date nights as long as we have been married, once a week. And he would be so tired. And it was like I wasn't getting my time. And I felt like, okay, it'll be all right. When we got ready to go on vacations, we had to plan for who was going to do this. So in my heart, I knew it was the right thing, but emotionally and what I needed, it was very difficult. It was very, very hard. And the day our youngest son talked about, you're putting him out, I lost it. I was like, how are we gonna deal with this? And Harold did a very good job of talking him through the process and why we go through that process. Then one day, my sister calls me, and she lived in the same city with my mother. And she had had my mother out of the hospital for about a month, and she was a wreck. And I did not like the information I was getting from the doctors. And I said, this is not gonna work for me. I said, let me go and get Mama and bring her here and send her to the specialist that we knew here, because I had a lot of connections at this point. And I had people that I could trust, that I knew would tell me the truth. When I looked at Harold, and he said to me, we got a plan for this. We always bought a room on the first floor in case his parents had to move in or my parents had to move in. This was forethought, right? So it wasn't a foreign concept, but we just didn't expect it right when we got it. So he said to me, he said, look, we got to get the room ready. We got to make sure that she's taken care of. We got to get caregivers. We got to do this. We got to do that. So in my mind, I said, okay, we bring mama home. She's quiet. She's not walking a lot. She's not doing anything. And after we bring her home, the next set of opportunities begin. We'll take a break, and when we come back, I'll further that conversation about what happened on the other side. We'll be right back.
Every story has a hidden element that is not often shared. Hidden Stories, Healed Now, with host Vicki Wright-Hamilton, seeks to share the hidden gems in real-life experiences. Our guests are ordinary people sharing their stories of overcoming insurmountable odds while providing hope and inspiration.
So welcome back. As I was beginning to talk about when I got this phone call about my mom, and I felt like they just aren't getting the care. I need to know in my mind I have done everything for my mother and father that I possibly could do. Because I truly believe in honor thy mother and thy father, for thy days may be long. So we got the house ready. We bring mama home. She's not talking. She's in a wheelchair. She's not trying to walk. She's not trying to do anything. And so I took her through all these appointments that we had to do. I took her. So that was day in and out appointments. That was her nighttime. I took care of the nights because we couldn't afford 24-hour care. I would take the evenings. I'd take the nights. I took the weekends. So my husband had to go all weekend knowing my wife is at home taking care of her mother and I get zero time from her. Now at that point, I'm thinking this is mama. So I'm on the same point he was. This is mama. What's the big deal? We got to do what we got to do, right? So if I got to give up my weekends, I give up my weekends. But here was where my mind was. I was like, if I'm doing it and not asking you to do it, it should be okay. But I too didn't think about his feelings and what he was going through and missing out and what he needed from me as a wife, as well as my kids as a mother. I was just, doing what I thought was right. Within 8 months, my mother did a 180. She was walking, she was talking, she was doing well, she was on a trajectory to do well, she was engaged, we had great conversations, we did things together. So nobody wanted to let her leave. And she loved Atlanta. She had lived here before. She used to be the dean of Spelman College. So she had been here before, very successful professional woman, and this is where she wanted to be. So the family was like, okay, she can stay with you. It's not a problem. Now, she and my daddy are still married. So my father travels back and forth from St. Louis to come and see her, and I would get them together and help them until one day I get the phone call from my dad that says, I can't do this anymore. It's time to go. I got to come be there with you and Irene. I want to be with my wife. Now, at this point, Mama had not taken a turn to where she ended up being, so she wasn't completely bedridden. And she was walking around and all that kind of thing. But I knew that if I was going to bring my father here, it was my responsibility to make sure that we sold the house, that we got him moved, etc. So I told him, I said, look, Daddy, don't tell me you're ready to do something you're not ready to do it, because I'm going to get ready to go and do it. So the first time he told me, I said, okay, I'll be there in 2 weeks. Wait a minute, that's too fast. Hold on. I said, well, if you ain't ready, then you ain't ready. It's okay. So then he calls me back the second time, and I said to him, okay, are you ready? He goes, I know if I tell you I'm ready, I got to be ready. I said, okay. I went and looked for a place because my father could no longer go up and down the steps, and we only had one bedroom on the first floor. My emotions. I'm separating my parents. I'm not able to put my mom and dad together. Is this wrong? What am I doing? And my father said to me, you don't need both of us over there. I understand. And I made it so that it was so close to home. It was 4 minutes away I could get to him and I could bring him to come and see her. So we would go get him and bring him in. We'd have dinners together. We did all of that during that time period while I was taking care of them. Then my mother took a turn for the worse. And it was through that conversation, because we'd always made a promise to each other. When you're ready to go, I won't hold you back. I'll have the strength to be able to let you go, because it's your life, it's your journey. And I said, so I'm going to ask you, when you say you're tired, are you tired enough to go home? She kept her promise to me. But at that time, I was also taking care of a cousin that I was traveling back and forth to Ohio for. That was on my father's side. So I'm flying back and forth to Ohio. I'm taking care of my mom and dad and trying to make this work. Of course, I'm trying to find in jobs anywhere I can. This is why I have my own business, because God said, you leaving the regular job and you got to go have your own business if you're going to survive. Because there's no way you could work a job and do this. And we just shelling out money. My husband never once said to me, this costs too much, or no, not once. He supported me through that entire time. Our kids supported me. Well, in 2019, it was in January, I lost my mom. In September, I lost my dad. So as we're going through this empty nest syndrome, I'm feeling like, did I do everything I possibly could do? Did I provide what they needed? And so it was these emotions that started to happen where I was like, I need to give. That's when we had the conversation and he said, do you realize that this was hard for me too? And I said, what do you mean? I'm the one that took the weekends off. I'm the one that did this. And then as we started having conversation, I said, I'm so sorry. I neglected you as my husband, because I was so focused on my mom and my dad and my cousin that I felt bad. But he never once made me feel that way. So Harold, after all of that time happened, what was it that made you say, the tables are turned and I now understand what the family went through?
I think that, I remember the conversation about your dad, and I remember what I said. It was like, okay, so I got Jeffrey, we got Irene. It's like, wait a minute now. So let me understand what's going to happen here. But I remember that conversation. But the thing that really made it turn was, not having our Friday nights and some of those things, not being able to go to certain events. But there was one key thing that really, really changed everything. And, we used to go to church on Sundays, right? And it was just me and Vicki. We go to church, and we wouldn't go every Sunday, but we would try to go 2 or 3 times a month. But because she had to stay home on Sundays and take care of her mom, I felt like I was leaving her when I went. So I stopped going too, in support of her, because I didn't want to go there without her, and she felt bad because she couldn't leave. So it was at that point in time that I realized that that there's all this give and take, right? And so I said, I'm gonna just stay home as well, because I didn't want to make her feel bad by leaving her there. And we used to go together. We couldn't go together anymore. So it's like, well, what am I gonna do? So I stayed home and prayed, right? But it was at that point in time when, I felt like I got to make a choice. And I felt like if I had gone without her, that it would have caused a rift. Not that she would have said anything, but it didn't feel right. So what felt right was staying home and just supporting, whether that was going to the grocery store or going to get some medication for Irene, whatever it was. So I just stayed home. And remember, this went on for years. But it was at that point that, you kind of have to make a decision and decide what you want to do. But I remember that very well. And I think we talked about it after the fact.
Did.
Yeah,
we did.
Yeah.
So we're going to see if we have any questions or comments from the audience.
Thank you so much for explaining and being able to give us all this wonderful information about your journey when it comes to care. Me being, I'm actually a military veteran, And my question is as simply as that: when your brother started showing symptoms, was it something that, like I said, came on very quick, or did it seem like it was giving indications or hints as time went on?
Yeah, that's the funny part. I remember getting the call, and I got the call about a week after my brother went to the hospital. But basically, he was going to church one Sunday, right? He was in Savannah, and he complained of a headache. He collapsed. So it was just like that. Yeah, it was just like that. They don't know what caused it. We have suspicions, but we don't know what caused it. It was really funny because Emory, which I said was a medical research hospital, they did an actual brain biopsy, and they scraped the brain cells off his brain to try to determine what caused it, and they could not determine what caused that encephalitis. So they termed it viral encephalitis, but they weren't able to identify what virus caused it.
But the interesting thing is we did get a letter from the military that actually said he might have, could have, sort of been exposed to this while he was in Saudi. But we're not admitting to anything, right? Really struck me. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes. So it was not easy. It was not easy.
Yeah.
Thank you for your question and participation. So thank you all. We truly appreciate the opportunity for you to join us. And I know that this subject is not easy, but it's one that we have to face as what happens, we get older. Thank you so much for joining us on another episode of Hidden Stories Healed Now. And remember, for every story that you let go, you gain your freedom and help someone else. See you next time.